No one hates Everton more than the Everton fans do. I needed the ref to make a poor decision. There's probably nothing better than walking into a football ground with the lights on. I've probably learnt more in the last 10 or 12 years since I've been refereeing.
Welcome to Football for Breakfast, presented by OSS Security. I'm Jim Johnson. When a back injury ended our guest's playing days, he took up refereeing, and he hasn't stopped since. His name is Jez Clein. Put the kettle on. You're amongst good companions. Jez Clein, sit yourself down. Welcome. Have your breakfast there.
Thank
Crunchy
you.
nut granola. Go on, you health fiend. Just reading this here copy of Roy of the Rovers from the 31st of March 1986. And I'm not sure whether Roy predicted the future, right? Because here we are. Roy was looking forward to playing for England in the Mexico World Cup finals. But first came an exhibition match against the national team of Basran, right? As a favour to Roy's old friend, King Hazir. But at the height of the game, tanks coming into the stadium. Roy, you were right, we've been caught in the middle of a full-scale revolution, right? There's a World Cup coming up, there's all this talk, there's a war in the Middle East, this is 40 years before the fact, but tonally it's all over the place, this comic, because apart from anything else, right, so Roy lands in, because he can fly a helicopter, Roy Race, of course he can. He lands in the British Embassy, hoping that to avoid. I mean, literally, like he uses races rocket to avoid avoid like a military coup. But then in amongst it, you've got Billy's Boots, like talking about that, and then weirdly, there's another one in here, right? Project 917, where a robot plays football. So I don't know what you think about that, Jez. It's all over the place. What's your earliest memory of football?
First game, 1977.
Oh, go on.
Everton at home against Manchester United, first ever game. And
where did you sit?
It was the upper park end before it was developed.
Right.
So I was near the front.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing, it was an evening match. I think as a youngster, there's probably nothing better than walking into a football ground with the lights on and just thinking, what is this? Even though it was Goodison.
Was the top on the park end at that time?
Yeah, it was seating above.
At the top?
Yes.
The away fans were down below, right?
Yeah, and then they sort of bricked that up quite a bit, so it was like really narrow. The
Do you remember
part.
when the away fans used to perch on the edge of the wall? Do you remember?
The things they did back in those days, you just
couldn't believe it,
no,
right?
You couldn't, could you?
Do you know, that used to blow my mind. My first game was at Goodison, right, 1978. Only game I ever went to with my dad, right? Upper Bullens, right, where
Yes, on the wooden
floor, stamping of the feet, blew my mind. That I can always remember stepping out and seeing the pitch for the first time. I thought I could have been at Wembley. Because for me, in my 7-year-old head, it was just like nothing I'd ever seen. So I always had a special affinity with the old lady. Throwing the toffees in, that blew my mind as well. Partly because the toffee lady, correct me if I'm wrong, was a Mrs. Bushell. Is that right?
Oh, I wouldn't know.
So I think the toffee lady was a Mrs. Bushell, right? Now I grew up in the area. In Neston on the Wirral, right, which is by Parkgate. Now I had a friend, right, whose name was Bushell, and he always claimed that he was distantly related to the toffee lady. How about that? Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, we digress. So that was where it was, right?
It was. My dad took me along to that. But I mean, in the early days, I think what we used to do, because there was no football on television, the only football fix you could get was going to the match. The only games we saw on TV was occasional England internationals, the FA Cup final.
Yeah.
And if an English team got into the European Cup final, they were the only football you saw. So I would alternate at that age between going to Everton one week and Liverpool
God, you were a Purple fan, weren't you?
Yeah, so one of my uncles had a season ticket in what was called the Kremlin.
Yeah, the Kremlin Road, which is now the Kerry Dalglish stand.
Yes, so I'd use that, and then on occasion, so obviously Everton weren't in Europe when I first started going to the game, so I'd go to some European Cup games with another uncle and go in the Cop, but Everton was the number one. It was, it did come as a surprise to some guys who I sat next to in the Kremlin that they thought I was a Liverpool fan.
Right.
But I was there for one derby and obviously started giving it when Everton scored, and it just shocked them completely. They'd sort of like taken me under their wing as a fellow Red.
Yeah.
And then they finally realised that, oh, actually, he's an Everton fan. So,
Joe, it's funny because like most of my experiences as a football fan growing up were at away games, and not with the away fans. So I would spend a lot of time going to watch Arsenal at Everton, right? Yeah. And you know, we've done okay against Everton over the years. But we've been also on the end of some absolute spankings. The 6-1, right, is the one that springs to mind. Neil Poynton made his debut that day, right? And there's nothing worse than being an away fan sitting in the home stand, because you just feel utterly dwarfed. I can remember my big takeaways from that game, apart from the fact that we equalised, right, and we had England internationals in our team at the time. I remember looking I was in the main stand and I looked behind me, and before the game I caught Damon Grant talking to Harry Cross, right? You know, Simon O'Brien talking to Bill Dean, right? And they were like, you know, when you're like my age and you watch Brookie, you think to yourself, this is crazy. You know, these are like real people, because they were mad blues, both those guys. But you went with your dad, right? How far does your dad's story with Everton go then?
Well, he was a bit of a workaholic back in the day.
Yeah.
He had his own chemist shop, and
oh really?
Yeah, that was open sort of like 7 days a week. So he's a pharmacist, but he dabbled in all sorts of fancy goods and everything. He had his own bookies at one stage as well.
A wheeler dealer.
Yeah, probably a bit of an Arthur Daly back in the day.
Love it.
Which I loved Arthur Daly as well. I loved Minder. So he was unable to take me. So he always either got someone who worked for him to take me to the match. So the first season,
you mean he like offset his parental responsibility for going to the match to one of his employees? Wow.
Yep. So we got in the lower Bullens, which obviously under the upper Bullens, we had a dad and lad season ticket.
Yeah.
So he'd get someone to take me as I was only like 10, 11 years old, something like that. But we went with someone who you call an uncle, but isn't an uncle.
The dad and lads thing was quite a thing at Everton, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was, and I think that went back generations, didn't it?
Quite possibly.
I think my father-in-law was a big blue, but I think he's a little bit purple in the sense of, because he's of an age where tribalism is something that doesn't matter to him anymore. He wants Liverpool to do well as well, which, do you know what I mean?
My dad's gone like that as well.
Has he really?
Yeah. Well, at the turn of the century, he was the Lord Mayor.
Wow, okay.
Of the city.
Wow.
Yes. So you get 2 seats at Everton and Liverpool every week in the director's box. You're wined and dined. You put on a bit of a pedestal.
Yeah.
So I think he got a bit of an attachment to Liverpool. I think they had a couple of cup finals that year. I think they had a UEFA Cup final. Was that the 5-4 one that they won?
Okay.
So he's always wanted both teams to do well. His first priority is Everton. But whereas 99.99% of Everton fans probably would prefer Liverpool to lose than Everton to win, he's one who he wants them to do well.
But the famous Moyes family, right?
Yeah.
They were red and blue, you know, and had ownership interests in both clubs. Not the same people, I might add, but the family, right? You know, David Moyes was a Liverpool chair for a number of years, and then there's John Moyes was.
But if you look back, the 84 Milk Cup final, it was the friendly final.
Yeah.
These days it'd be anything but that, wouldn't it?
Well, people would have a lot to say about Alan Hansen's handball. Do you know what I mean? You know,
that was the first time I'd been to Wembley, actually. March 1984.
Yeah.
So that was the first time as a 15-year-old. Didn't think it would ever happen. Because obviously started going in '77. I don't think we just weren't successful, were we, for 5 or 6 years? Didn't look like doing anything. So yeah, we had the Dad and Lad season ticket.
Yeah.
So I had one, and someone else had a Dad and Lad season ticket, but his daughter never went, so I ended up going with him, and he also ended up being a Lord Mayor of the city.
Right.
Now, interestingly, so he'd
I'm
take
sitting with royalty. It's incredible.
Interestingly, so
Scouse royalty, I might add, you know.
what he used to do is he'd say, we'd always get golden goal tickets.
Right.
So they were £5 for £1.
Right.
He said, I'll pay the £1. He said, you select them.
Yeah.
He said, if we win, we'll go 50-50. We won. Genuinely, we won. I think it was about 1984.
No surprise money.
£250.
No small amount of cash.
I know, but it was a funny tale as well. So Everton take the lead just after half time, and the goal was 46 minutes, 50 seconds.
Right.
So they announced the goal after 5 minutes later to go. And the golden goal time, 46 minutes, 40 seconds. So at that stage, that's when we start opening our tickets. And we had 46 minutes, 50 seconds.
Right.
So 10 seconds after they said. So we go, oh, that's close. Might be the closest we might get something for it. Let's keep hold of it. A couple of minutes later, there was a correction. They said, correction to the golden goal time, 46 minutes, 50 seconds. And it was like, that was what was I, 14, 15 years old? £125,
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Yeah.
So I bought a cricket bat.
Do you know what? Going back to my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, they won the pools. Right. They won the pools. Actually, I think the story goes that my wife's grandma won the pool, so that would be my mother-in-law's mother, right? And it was the deposit. They used it for the deposit on their first house. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so it must have been a tidy sum of money. You know, I mean, you talk about football pools now. You know, this is. I mean, the pool sort of predates like the Paddy Power era, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, but the pools in those days, it was how you found out who you were playing. You know, and if you didn't have a program or something like that, you know, that
Well,
was
some of Everton's best results back in the day were judged by the pools panel.
Boom, boom. I love that. No, I love that. So your grassroots team is Harold Dean's. Talk to me about that. What's that?
Okay. Well, I mean, the first, again, back in the late 70s, 80s, there was none of these under 6, under 7s, under 8 sides that you've got now. I mean, it's just prolific around the city, the amount of young sides. There was none of this 5-a-side, 6-a-side. It was just 11-a-side. The first time you really played team football was when you were under 11,
Yeah.
and it was 11-a-side with these massive goals. So
Massive pitches.
yeah. So I think the first grassroots team I did play for was Mossley Hill. Played for them for a couple of years. They've actually had quite a few. That's where Curtis Jones started.
Yeah, a good team.
Yeah,
Walton Kirkdale, was it that league?
There's first of all is the Mossley Hill Junior League.
That's it, right. Yeah.
So yeah, my son actually played in the same side as Curtis Jones for
Really?
a while.
Wow.
Yeah. Story to
Yeah,
tell.
it is, isn't it just?
Their paths have gone in different directions since.
Well, you know, not everybody can be a professional footballer.
No.
You know what I mean?
So I played for them for a couple of years, then wasn't enjoying it, and I used to go and watch my dad play football. So Harold Dean's were the Jewish team in Liverpool.
The Jewish team in Liverpool.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they were the only Jewish team in Liverpool, but they had 4 teams.
Right.
So they managed to field 4 teams, but played in the Manchester Jewish Soccer League.
Right.
Okay, because obviously big Jewish community
Yeah.
in Manchester. So every away game was in Manchester. There was occasional games in Leeds as well.
That's quite exciting for kids, right?
Well, yes, but
because it feels very exotic that as a child, doesn't it? You know, not playing. You know, if you talk about your son playing Mossley Hill, right? His away games are going to be in Kirby and
he'd be playing against
Walton
schoolmates as well, wouldn't he?
Exactly, right? But you're talking about, getting transport to go and play football in a different town, man. You know.
Well, yes, but I mean, I actually started playing senior football, so I was 14, and I'd
Playing seniors at 14?
Yeah,
Wow.
so you're allowed to back in
Yeah,
those
they
days.
didn't care, did they?
No. Now you've got to be 16 to
Yeah,
play
yeah.
senior football.
Yeah.
So I think I was 14 and a half. I hadn't played for my club side on Sunday morning, and I was going to Manchester to watch my dad play football. I think they were short, and they said, "Oh, why don't you play?"
Yeah.
14 and a half. He was fine with that, my dad. So I played, and then I think I ended up playing for about the next 25 years for them.
Right.
Until I stopped playing at the age of 44.
Right. I stopped playing at 40. You know, 44's some going. You never fancied playing, vets? Or...
I did. That's how I ended. So I was playing for Old Zab's Vets on a Saturday and Harold Ian's Vets on a Sunday.
Right. In the Jewish community?
No, because year by year the numbers diminished within Liverpool. So they were down to one team.
Oh, really?
By the end. But
what do you think was the reason for
that? I suppose probably like me, a lot of Jewish people married out. So my wife's not Jewish, and
so just culturally, it kind of
a lot
watered down the pool, really.
A lot moved to Manchester, a lot moved to London. Now, although in the Jewish life, they take the mother's religion.
Yes.
So my children aren't Jewish.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, they ended up going to King David, which is the Jewish school, and I think when I went there was probably 80% of pupils were Jewish. Now it's down to about 20%.
Right.
So obviously it was tough. So I mean, Haroldines now still do exist, but there's one or two Jewish.
I wonder whether, because off the top of my head, the only kind of Jewish footballers I can think of, I mean, this is literally off the top of my head, so forgive me. There's obviously Yossi Benayoun is one, and Avi Cohen would be the other one. Both played for Israel, I think, right?
Ronnie Rosenthal.
Ronnie, there's Ronnie Rosenthal as well.
And we had one as well at Everton.
Go on.
Eden Tal,
yeah. I don't think he was so great though, was he? Which is why he doesn't. I remember him, but I don't remember him being a folk hero for Everton.
No, he wasn't.
But my point is more about when you're recruiting from grassroots football. That's probably why less Jewish players are perhaps coming through. Do you know what I mean? I'm seeing, for instance, 15 years ago there was an issue, with Asian footballers. They weren't recruiting, but there's obviously a big potential recruitment from the Asian community now. I was watching an international youth competition in Spain a couple of weeks ago, and the Liverpool under-15s got beaten by an Indian team, right? So there's I wonder whether or not there's something in that, and of course that does have an impact for international football. Where are you going to get those players from? You want them to play at the highest level, obviously, and those players we were just talking about, I'm pretty sure that Yossi Benayoun was the Israeli captain for a while,
possibly.
And I'm pretty sure Avi Cohen was as well. So yeah, I
think Everton had another one. Was Mikhail Madar?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. But
there have been a few.
But I think in order to stimulate players coming through from different communities, you're going to have to find the platforms for them to play. For instance, just from where I played football, I played in the Ellesmere Port Sunday League, right? None of that just doesn't exist as a thing anymore.
No, it's dwindling. Grassroots is definitely dwindling all over. Yeah.
So anyway, that's the whistle I can hear for the half time. In the second half, we're going to talk about your story and what football's taught you. For the moment, Jez, thank you very much. This show exists because people believed in what it could be before it was anything. J.B. Priestley wrote about football turning strangers into companions, a community built in 90 minutes. And that's the whole idea behind what we're doing here. And OSS Security got that straight away. Not just the podcast, but the point of it, the belonging, the conversations, the thing that football does to people when it's at its best. They came on board as believers in the show, in the vision, in what this community can become. They say, got you covered. And that's exactly how it feels for the show and for everyone who's part of it. So, whatever you need, whether that's for your business or for your home, simply knowing someone's looking out for you, well, they've got you covered. We're proud to have them with us on this journey, and you can find a link to them in the show notes to find out more. Okay, so this is the second half. So, Jez, your own story. You retired now, right? But what did you do?
Okay, I was quite lucky really. I did a degree at John Moores University, where interestingly enough, I actually ended up being chairman of the football section there. Just again showing my
Footy
involvement with
credentials.
football, yes. And I had a placement year, and it was at Heinz in Wigan, the big bean factory.
Yep.
So me being sort of like fairly laid back and not really have much of a work ethic, at the end of my degree, I just wrote to them and said, look, any chance of a permanent job?
Fair.
And they said, well, we don't know, we're going to be reorganising, so possibly, but apply for other jobs in the meantime.
Yeah.
I didn't.
No.
And then they wrote to me just before I graduated and said, yeah, we've got a job for you. So that was working in the finance department, travelling to Wigan every day. I did that for about 10 years, and then I moved into the procurement department, which...
Within Heinz?
Yeah,
wow.
Which meant me travelling around Europe quite a lot.
Okay.
And then at the age of 44, they moved the whole department over to Holland.
Yeah.
They wanted me to move with my whole family,
yeah.
which wasn't really going to happen. So I've got 3 children at the time. One was 11, one was 10, one was 8. They were all settled in school. So that wasn't going to happen. So I got another job within Heinz, which I didn't enjoy at all.
Right.
Then they had another reorganisation. My job went. They said, oh, we can find you another job. And I said, oh, I'm getting a bit fed up with this now. So they offered me voluntary redundancy. That was at the age of 44.
Right.
I used some of that money. I already had a couple of student houses that I rent out. I used that money to buy another one.
Right.
And basically didn't work since. So that was my life. But at that
so you became
time,
like a property developer, basically.
No, just renting out really. So I don't develop properties.
Right.
It's just landlord.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
I'm a landlord.
Yeah.
But at the age of 44, I also suffered a prolapsed disc in my back.
Oh God. Football related?
It didn't help.
Do you think you played too long? Do you ever think that?
I've never had that much suppleness in my hamstrings and my lower back.
Lots of stretching.
Yeah, that didn't. I could never touch my toes, even at my fittest. I
Really?
Never touch
What
my
position
toes.
did you play?
Pardon?
What position did you play?
I was sort of like what you'd call probably the number 10 or box to box midfielder. Yeah,
okay.
Behind the
So you needed
forward.
pretty good range of movement to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I was a centre half, right? And I used to joke that I had a great turn of pace over 30 miles. You know, and I was quite lucky that actually, I didn't play at a high standard by any stretch of the imagination, but I was a lefty, so I always used to get a game. You know, because you were a left-sided defender. Captain most of the teams I played for, because I had good footballing IQ, decent peripheral vision of the game. And as I got older, and I started playing, continued to play at the sort of levels appropriate to my age. I found that my lack of pace no longer became an issue because nobody had any pace, right? Do you know what I mean? But I remember in a Legends game that we played, it was the last game of competitive football I ever played, and I tore my meniscus, and it's that thing of like, I'd avoided serious injury, and then I got this stupid injury, So you have to know when to stop, I think.
Well, I was always asked myself the question, when would I know when to stop?
Yeah.
Because I was still enjoying it, and I was thinking, how would I cope without playing football? So I had this prolapsed disc, kept me out for about 9 months, but it repaired itself.
Oh, wow.
Started playing again, then played cricket, was keeping wicket, I was batting.
You keeping wicket?
Yeah.
You need serious range of movement to be a wicket keeper.
I know.
Yeah, particularly if you
I even
close
kept
in,
wicket
right?
Last year in a game. So I was batting, I hit the ball, it hit the base of my bat, and my back just locked.
Right. That's scary.
Yeah, I was in absolute agony. So that again caused a prolapsed disc. So that was it. I never played football after that. A friend of mine said, "Why don't you take up refereeing?"
Right.
Because he'd refereed me a lot. He knew I was a bit of a narc.
Yeah.
Always had something to say or too much to say for myself.
Fair enough.
But I needed that when I played. I
Yeah,
needed that to get me going.
Yeah, you have to play with.
Otherwise-
Yeah, you had to play with emotion.
Yeah.
You know, my son's like in the system. He's got aspirations, and he gets accused of not playing cold enough. That's the phrase that you like to use now. You don't play cold, and he always argues that he needs to play with his emotions, because if he doesn't play with his emotions, it's like he doesn't care.
Yeah, I'd stroll through a game.
Yeah, he can't do that.
I needed that. I needed the ref to make a poor decision. I needed someone to do a bad tackle on me. It's like what gets the Everton crowd up at Hill Dickinson now.
Oh, for sure. And Goodison.
Yeah, we need a bad decision. We need something to happen against it. And I was like that when I played.
I do sort of feel, and I talked about this on a podcast that I do as a guest. So when I sit on your side of the table, and we were talking about when the old lady closed down, when Everton moved from Goodison last season, and I said that because Arsene Wenger, the great Arsene Wenger, says that the two most difficult grounds he ever went to were Anfield and Goodison, right? Because the tribalism that exists, it's close to the pitch, all of that, right?
Yeah.
But whereas I think Liverpool have always used it to their advantage, the 12th man, particularly those European nights, etc., etc. I think for Everton, because their luck hasn't been as great as Liverpool's over the years, it's been used against them by their own crowd, because that anxiety and that kind of, I don't want to say an inferiority complex, but you know what I mean, right? That in itself transcends onto the pitch. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. There's a saying that no one hates Everton more than the Everton fans do.
Self-loathing almost.
Oh,
it's self-loathing.
It is the toxicity from the Everton fans when we go a goal behind can be something else.
Yeah.
That just a slight misplaced pass and the whole all 40, 50,000
and do you know what,
backs,
Jez,
because they want them to do so well.
Yeah, and do you know what, Jez? I don't know a blue. You know, I know loads of blues, right? That would sit there and wouldn't disagree with you, right? So it's clearly not them, but it's just everyone else, right? You know, but they know it.
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, Everton fans are the most self-aware football fans that I think you could possibly meet. You know,
I mean, there's probably with some justification. I mean, what is it now? 31 years without a trophy, so we've not had the success, and there's a whole generation who have grown up.
Well, look, I don't buy that narrative, and the reason why I don't buy that narrative, you know, there's obviously time-stamped where we are today. You know, I'm an Arsenal fan, and we are where we are, right? Right, but you know, and there's the whole bottle jobs narrative and all that sort of stuff. Right? Are we bottle? Look, I'm not. The rule is we're not supposed to talk about contemporary football. But if we're talking about fan culture and that sort of thing, right? Are we bottle jobs, or have we just consistently come second in the Premier League over a number of seasons? Right?
Yeah.
Like, no, okay, that might be a half full, half empty conversation, right? But there is surely something in that, because most teams, well, you know, 90 odd teams in English football don't do that,
and they'd love to finish second.
Do you know what I mean? Right,
Yeah.
right. Because it's all about being part. This came up in the previous conversation with previous guests. It's all about being part of the conversation, right? If you're not part of the conversation, you feel irrelevant, and I think that's it's the relevance thing that I think gets to Everton fans, because, to be with the greatest respect and without you know, poking any bears, Liverpool have even when Liverpool went 30 years without winning a title, they remained relevant.
They won Champions League.
They won the Champions League and all
FA
that sort of stuff.
And League Cups.
And it's that. It's why I think the appointment of Moyes has been a good thing for them. And I know I speak to Blues all the time and they don't like it and all that sort of thing. But it's about retaining relevance. I think David Moyes is I think David Moyes personally is one of the top 5 coaches in the country, and I think Man United shot themselves in the foot by.
He's a long-term manager. He was.
Yeah,
he builds teams. He's not a sticking plaster manager.
Exactly that. What do you think football's taught you?
I think actually I've probably learnt more in the last 10 or 12 years since I've been refereeing than anything else.
Well, this brings us on to your object, because we ask everyone who comes in to bring an object, something that's important to them. And you told me before we started filming that you're not a sentimental person, and which is brilliant for Football for Breakfast, because it is all about sentimentality and the old school and, you know, the breadth of football. So talk to me about your object.
Okay, so it's my referee's whistle.
Okay.
So as we were saying, once I've finished...
It's not these as well, is it?
No,
It's not, ref, you need glasses.
Yeah, plenty do say that.
Yeah. Go on.
So once I stopped playing and I was asked or told to take up the whistle.
It rattles.
Yeah.
It's got the ball inside it. Amazing.
And I thought...
Can I have a go?
Yeah, go on. It's quite loud.
Oh, that's proper, that is, isn't it? That's proper, that. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, it works.
It does work. It does
get
work.
the attention of players.
So go on then.
So as I say, I used to be one who gave quite a lot of dissent to referees, so it worked quite well. So, I mean, I understand players' frustrations and things like that. But I think what it has made me is probably not arrogant, but always believing that I am right.
Okay.
So whether it's my opinions or anything, I always feel that I'm right. Yeah. And I think that's borne out of me refereeing. So I could do 10, 12, 15 matches a week refereeing. Right. So I do it during the midweek. So I'll referee.
What levels do you referee?
So I referee in the Liverpool Football League.
Yeah.
Saturday League.
Adults?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't like doing junior football.
Go on.
Just the parents.
I've only ever refereed one match in my entire life, right? And it was a junior football match when the referee didn't turn up.
Yeah.
And the two coaches asked for
a
volunteer, right? Now, I, back in the day, believe it or not, was a teacher, right? So I have my teaching qualifications, and I've also got my my Key Stage 2 FA coaching badge, which they don't do anymore, right? I'll tell you how old this is, right? When you did it, you got a folder with the rules of the game in it and the philosophy of the English FA, and it was the philosophy that was written by Charles Hughes.
Yes,
right.
I remember him. Yeah.
Get the ball at the pitch as quickly as possible and all that sort of stuff. And I actually think we're going back to that a little bit, but. There's nothing. Well, you say that. There's nothing new under the sun, right? There's nothing new under the sun. Football is a cyclical.
Yes.
It's a cyclical game. You know, it reinvents itself. You know, and what did Brian Clough say? You know, it's a simple game complicated by idiots, right? Anyway, this particular game, and I'd refereed school games when I was a teacher because that's just the expectation, right? And the first contentious decision that was made, war broke out, right? And I just blew my whistle and I called both coaches onto the pitch and I said, look, just to remind you, right, I'm just a parent who's a volunteer, right? And I said, so if anybody else wants this,
yes, I've done that.
Yeah, go for it, right? And I'll get off, right? Because I'm just here to watch my son, right? The minute you say that, people have a word with themselves.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and I do think that one of the problems with refereeing is that referees do not talk enough through the game, right? I think communication is everything. And you are clearly a good communicator. I mean, you do Everton podcasts. You know, you clearly have that set of skills.
But that's something that I've developed, I think, since I've become a referee. So believe it or not, I was quite shy.
I don't believe that.
No, genuinely I was. But I think refereeing has brought it out of me. So I say I'm fairly opinionated. But so when I make a decision, even if I'm wrong, I've got to believe that I am right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, players they'll build on that. They'll see that you're not giving decisions with any conviction. So I think that's actually come out in other parts of my life as well. So sometimes for
having the courage of your convictions.
I've always got to believe I am right. So I umpire cricket as well.
Right.
So if I give someone out LBW, I've got to be convinced I am right.
Yeah.
So
I only ever umpired umpired one cricket game, and it was in school, and I was asked to umpire at square leg.
Yeah.
Right. And the boy that was umpiring, like, doing the umpiring, right? Because I was the junior, the bowler's end.
Yeah.
So I was the junior. I wasn't giving any responsibility to do, end to end. I just umpired at square leg, and I gave a contentious.
Stumping or run out?
Run out.
Yeah.
Right. And the older boy gave it, and then turned to me and said, "I could tell that was not out." And the PE teacher, I'll never forget it, Mr. Fernley, he just hooked him and said, "Johnson, you can now umpire there because you have the courage of your convictions." He said he should have overruled you.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. So moving forward, the final thing is the penalty shootout. Okay.
Go on.
Right, so one question first thing comes into your head, no hesitations, or I can tell whether the answer's gone over the bar, okay, or missed. Okay, so home or away?
What, home or away?
Home or away?
Away.
Okay. Watching or playing?
Yeah, well, it used to be playing. I wish I could probably play, but...
So it's playing?
Yeah.
Best captain?
Ours would have to be Kevin Ratcliffe.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, actually. I'm glad you said that. Because we've had a lot of Reds on this show so far, and they all say the same thing. Right? Oh, yeah, and I'm surprised, actually. I'm surprised that no one said Jordan Henderson. I'm really surprised so far. But it's interesting, that. There's a whole thing I could talk about Kevin Ratcliffe on. A Rolls Royce of a footballer.
Yeah.
VAR or nah?
VAR, but used in the correct way, so not for subjective decisions.
So VAR or nah?
VAR.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Right. International friendlies or pre-season friendlies?
Neither.
No, you've got to have one. International friendlies or pre-season friendlies?
International friendlies are a waste of time.
Okay, so pre-season friendlies.
Yes.
Okay. One result. Doesn't have to be football. One result you will never get over.
Everton winning in Kharkiv when we played away at Metalist Kharkiv in Ukraine. That was the first time I went to see Everton in Europe.
Wow.
And
so you went to the Ukraine?
Yeah, I think this was 2008. So that was...
Was that on the Europa League run?
Yes. We got knocked out by Fiorentina because I was in Fiorentina, and then we played them at home, won 2-0 and lost on penalties.
Right.
When we thought that was a year we possibly had a really good chance. But no, going to the Ukraine on a day return trip,
right?
You certainly wanted to win that game, otherwise it's a long journey home.
It really is. It really, really is. There's something there for you. If you pick that up and read what's on the...
I do need my glasses for
right,
that.
You do need... Raf, you do need your glasses.
Distance, I'm no problem.
There you go.
Okay, football for breakfast, good companion, 25-26.
Now that's for you. All there is left to say is, Jez Clein, thank you for being a good companion and joining me on Football for Breakfast.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Jez Clein, a man who found that when you can no longer play the game, the best thing you can do is give something back to it. Football for Breakfast is a production by The Good Companions, presented by OSS Security. They've got you covered at osssecurity.com.
Football for breakfast again today. Crack the world's problems, then win on our way. From the floodlights to the white lanterns, stars to grey.